Hey there, this is Malorian, and this will be another Paintisode. Excuse the hair, I kind of just like woke up. The wife is now doing like these classes from here, and so it's my job to put the kids to bed, and then I can do my Paintisode after. And I fell asleep while doing that, so luckily I woke up in time, got to do the Paintisode. For those who this is your first Paintisode, basically the idea is pull out your paints, man. I'm going to be painting for about an hour and yapping about stuff. And then during this time, just join along. Listen in, paint your own things. And after about an hour, I'm going to cough a lot. And we'll have a bunch of stuff painted. Now, for me, I'm going to be painting not Warhammer, not War Machine today. I'm going to be painting board game stuff. Now, one of the games I'm currently in love with is Shadows over Camelot. This is probably reversed for you right now. But yeah, I love this game. Fantastic co-op type game where there's always a chance for a traitor. Geez, sorry. But there's all these awesome plastic pieces. But as cool as they are, they look a lot better painted. So today, what I'm going to be painting, I think I coughed right to the mic. Boy, I'm starting this one off good. I'm going to paint up these catapults. So there is 12 of these teeny tiny little catapults, and I'm just going to be painting those today. So, it's one of those things where it's not for a need in a tournament, right? It's not like I'm rushing to paint these little things because, man, I got my Shadows over Camelot tournament coming up. I just want to paint them because the game will be that much more enjoyable with these things painted. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. They're going to be really simple, too. A lot of it is just going to be brown all over, and then kind of go from there. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of – I'm not sure if I'm going to make it metal or stone, because these are catapults back from the time of Arthur. So, I don't know if metal, struts and things like that would actually be a thing or what would be the deal there. So, although I think stone is maybe putting a little bit too far back, too, right? I'm pretty sure they didn't go back to stone wheels. If anything, maybe they're wood wheels still type thing. But, yeah, we'll get it figured out. We'll get some general paint on the models. And meanwhile, I'll be answering your questions that you left me from last time. And then after that, for you guys, I already got a couple of viewers here. Post up more questions. And I'm just going to go and talk about them while I paint up all these things. Now, one of the things that's kind of a problem with these tiny little models is where in the world do you hold these things? Because they are just so tiny. There's not like they come with a base that you can paint first. So really, you have to decide to either do it in two parts and like paint one half, put it down, let it dry, and then paint the other half. Or, as I'm going to do, just say screw it. And just say, you know what, my fingers are going to get paint on them and deal with it. So I'm going to go and try and get the majority of the paint on of this brown in the first go. And then when I'm done them all, I'll come back and do this little bits where my fingers are. And yeah, I'm going to have brown fingers by the end of this, but it'll be totally worth it. So I'm going to go over now and take a look at some of these questions that we had submitted here. Not as many as last time, but we got enough here. And if not, I got some stuff going on right now that I could talk about. So we'll start with these questions here and go from there. First one from Chance Encounter saying, Mal, I'm just starting War Machine with Crix. I currently have the Scarlock Thrall and Gorshade 3. Is there any advice you have for starting out, specifically with regards to Crix? Also, in the last Paintisode, you had a Greetings from Greenville MS shirt on. As someone that lives in MS, I was curious if you had actually visited Greenville and got that t-shirt, or if it was just a random t-shirt I own. You know what? It's just a random t-shirt I own. Actually, interestingly enough, a lot of my t-shirts I just get for free. My father goes to a lot of golf tournaments, wins a lot of shirts, and I say, hell, give them to me. I don't care. I'll wear them while painting or whatever, because it's not like, I get home from work where I'm wearing all my dress pants and my dress shoes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wear this for painting. No. You wear some sort of garbage for painting, so if I accidentally do this and drop my brush, I don't really care. So, yeah, I got a bunch of garbage t-shirts that I'd never be seen with in public, but hey, you know, they're great for painting. So that's where that T-shirt's from. I've never been to Minnesota. I haven't been to a lot of places in the States, but yeah, there's that. Otherwise, talking about Cricks, Cricks is one of those ones where it's hard to go wrong. Really, okay, the way that you go wrong with Cricks is you buy a lot of jacks. Cricks is an army that is based mainly around its infantry, so as long as you buy infantry, you're pretty much good. Um, yeah, I mean, Banes, be they Bane Knights or Bane Thralls, are both amazing. The Raiders are great. The Bile Thralls are great. You know, you just want to get some of those infantry and then just figuring out what combinations work for you. Now, Gorshade is one of these guys where he wants to have cheap guys that can run up for his feet. His feet is where you pick your friendly models. They basically explode, and then anything within those AoEs gets stationary. So what you want to take then is, especially like your Black Bane Knights, or whatever they're called, little ethereal things, or I believe they're moving 7 as well, and they just race across the board, get wherever you want, pop feet, and then really whatever you want is stationary. It is a really awesome feat that works really well with how Crix works anyway. And I mean, on one part, Gorshade can just say, okay, I pop feet, and I'm going to siphon bolt you to death because your caster is now like defense 5 or whatever it turns it to, so I'm hitting you on anything with double ones, and I'm just going to keep on siphon bolting you to your dead. You know, and if it fails, whatever. You know, most of your army is stationary, and you're going to be scrambling to come back next turn, and I'll just continue the kicking your butt. Or even if he doesn't want to go assassination, he can just say, hey, all your stuff is stationary, my kick-ass stuff is going to hit you automatically in melee and pretty much slaughter you. Or if nothing else, the feat just slows them down so that you're getting all your pieces in position so that next turn, okay, everything charges and bad news. You know, a lot of times we were talking about Bile Thralls. They're kind of hard to get up there and in position sometimes because they have really crappy defense. They'll be shot down, so you have to be really careful how you deliver them. Well, guess what? Models that are stationary can't shoot, and so that's a great way to get those models up there. So, yeah, I mean, it's really the only way it can go wrong with Crix is by jumping in and saying, you know what, I'm going to do a Jack faction. And you know what, if you would have told me that you started with Mortenebra, you know what, you could have maybe even gotten away with that. But seeing as how you started with Gorshade 3, go for the troops like normal. Whoopie Womp, who says, aw, because in that last one I had my daughter do the video. You know, we'll see if I can get the wife to do one. I doubt it. But Whoopie Womp was actually supposed to be joining me today. He's been supposed to be joining me for a while. He's been wanting to do a show and joining the fun. But he's been having lots of trouble with his internet. Today he's sick. So just, you know, the fates are conspiring against us. But I'm sure Whoopie Womp will be joining us again at some point. Should also be getting my buddy Terry back from the Welsh meta there. That'd be fun to do that again. But yeah, you know, it's a weird time zone, you know, and even though it works out great for me to do this Mondays at 8 o'clock my time here in Alberta, you know, if you're off in Wales or somewhere else, that can be like, oh, do you want to wake up early in the morning to do a Paintisode? That can be sometimes a problem. But that's why I put up the video before, so you guys can submit your questions, and I'll just get to them after. All right. Next one here from Lord Stannis Baratheon. He had some questions about when the Paintisode was, but then he also had a question about what is my favorite Signar caster and why? My favorite Signar caster is Kane 2. He is just a bundle of fun. He is a one-man army, and he's one of those guys where it almost doesn't matter what else you take in the army. You know, you probably want rangers to help with shooting out, but literally, if you just take a bunch of random crap just to be a distraction so that you can line up Kane 2 for the assassination, sure, it's all good. You know, oh, you got a whole unit of dudes there? Well, guess what? I can get 10 shots a turn, and I'm just going to shoot all those guys off. Oh, you got stealth? Don't care. I can see you. oh, you're hiding behind some crazy contraption of defense you got, magic bullet. You know, like he's just so amazing. And I mean, whenever you have a model that has the rate of fire infinity, you know that guy is going to be awesome. So yeah, Kane 2 all the way. Lots and lots of fun. Definitely the Signar player, caster rather, that I have played the most. And yeah, he never, okay, I can't say he never lets me down, but I've never made a list for him where I was like, damn, that Kane 2 sucks. He was not the right choice. You know, it's he's a pretty awesome caster. And, you know, like sometimes you have those casters that have cool feats like Haley, or maybe they have cool spells like Striker 1, but then you don't do anything, right? They spend the whole game hiding. And when you got a leader, you know, this is the leader of my force, you kind of want him to be a badass. And that's basically what Kane 2 is, right? He is the lead by example type of caster where, like, come on, gun mages, I just killed a unit by myself. Now you can try and catch up. You know, that's the type of caster he is. You're almost tempted sometimes just to leave the army at home, see if Kane 2 can do it all by himself. I bet you sometimes he could. But yeah, he's been a long time favorite of mine. I haven't played him in a while, actually. I've been more on trying to focus on Siege. You know, because sometimes just because you have a caster you love, sometimes you got to do some tough love and put them aside because you got to learn these other casters. I mean, as much as I want to call myself a good Signar player, I actually had a very little experience with Haley 2. So that's why I'm forcing myself to play more Haley 2. My friends may not like that, but yeah, you got to learn them somehow. Going down here, Steg of Death. Are there any Canadian wargaming companies that you know of? Not sales, but manufacturers of models, paint supplies, etc., like Privateer Press, GW, Reaper, located here in Texas. Mini Wargaming, they are located in Canada. They were producing their own models for a while, but then that kind of tanked and stopped. As far as like producing their own paints and stuff, I can't think of any Canadian paint company. I mean, there's been a few models where it's like a one-off thing where these guys do like a limited run. But I mean, it's a tough gig. I had a friend of mine that was wanting me to have a guy on because he was doing a Kickstarter and he was going to start up his own model line, and they looked awesome. They really did look awesome, but he just did not get the support because you were up there trying to fight the big names like Reaper and Privateer Press and Games Workshop, and it is really hard to be competing with stuff like that. So, I mean, what can I say? A lot of those big companies are in the States, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of these big ones that I've been using all the time are Canadian, and I just don't know. I just assume that they're American. So, as stands right now, I can't really think of anything. Like, they're getting darker. Next part of his question. Also, since the Oilers are out of the playoff picture in a huge way, oh yeah, we're going for that last or first round draft pick rather. Who do you support at this point? Nobody. I mean, we have a saying here. It's ABC, anybody but Calgary, and yeah, I mean, pretty much for me, I start watching at the start of the season. It's like, yeah, hockey. Oilers suck. Done. And, you know, this was always a thing in the past too, right? Even back when the Oilers were good, I would watch them till they got to the first or second round of the playoffs. And then when they lost, I would just kind of stop watching the hockey. You know, like, I enjoy hockey and all, but Oilers were my team, and that's who I support. And honestly, when they were out, I just kind of lost interest. And so, yeah, now the way it goes, where the Oilers are like the laughing stock of the league, it's a little bit hard to ever really be into hockey anymore. And so at every start of every year, it's like, oh yeah, this is the Oilers' year. We're gonna, you know, maybe not do awesome, but we're actually going to be having a playoff run and trying to at least get eliminated in the first round or something. And nope, we're last place again. So it's just, what can you do? Next part of this. Do you find most Canadians tend to root for Canada-based teams over U.S.-based teams in the playoffs or finals? For the most part. I mean, clearly you always root for whoever lives near you first, right? I mean, if you're living in Toronto, guess what? You're probably a Leafs fan. But past that, I mean, you always have the people like my brother, where he just loves the Pittsburgh Penguins and Mario Lemieux and all these things. And, you know, he cheers for them way more than he cheers for the Oilers. But for the most part, when you can't really help but cheer for the local teams. Now, one of the things that I always find laughable is that, of course, the local teams, and it doesn't really matter whether you're American or Canadian, they're from all over the place, right? I mean, sometimes you have it so it's American team versus a Canadian team, and there's more Canadians on the American team. And it's kind of ridiculous. I would actually really love to see a rule where, you know, you can only be on the team if you're from that state, you know, or a province when you're here in Canada. I think that would be fantastic, right? It would really make it so that, you know, the Edmonton Oilers are people that are from Edmonton or at least Alberta. And sure, that would really mean that, oh, you know, all you Europeans, sorry, you're kind of out of luck. But it would mean so much more. I mean, I've almost kind of been disenchanted with the whole thing now because, you know, while I've had these years of sorrow of the Edmonton Oilers being utter garbage, you know, I've just had time to kind of reflect on the system on whole. And it's like, wow, you know, having that raw for the home team doesn't really mean as much as it used to. And I guess that even doesn't really say anything either. I mean, it's not like they've just started doing trades recently, but it just seems that trades are happening more often now. And whenever you start cheering for a team, you know, there's this brand new player, and like, yeah, he's going to be awesome. And then they trade him. You know, it's just, when you, especially like financially, right? You get a new Oiler. And it's like, yeah, this goalie's going to be awesome. And you get his jersey, and you're getting ready to see him through the year, and then they trade him. And it's like, well, thanks a lot, Oilers. You know, I own this jersey, and it was only legitimate for a year. You know, it's just, it's not like jerseys are cheap or anything. But there you go. I probably talked about that one way more than I needed to, but passions. Or do they pick a team based on players who maybe played juniors in there or growing up? I kind of don't really understand that part of it. I can say that there are some people that are starting to go more for looking at the, you know, like the lower leagues type thing, going to the university games and stuff like that, because, man, prices for those tickets are crazy expensive. My parents have been the type where they're like, yeah, support your hometown. Get season tickets for everything, even if you don't really want to watch it, because that's how you support the city. And now they're like, wow, maybe these are misallocated resources. So they're even thinking about dropping some of their tickets there. But, yeah. The only team I will not support is the Habs, as I am a diehard Bruins fanatic. Habs, by the way, are the Montreal Canadiens, for those who don't know the lingo. That said, I sure respect the hell out of Roy, and I think PK Subban should reunite with his brother in Boston because, man, they can play. Yeah. What can I say? They don't play for Edmonton. I just don't care. Just the way I am. Oh, that's a lot of brown. They're all brown now, all the catapults. Let's see if any things here. Stag of Death. They had metal swords and armor, right? I'm assuming his question there about metal swords and armor is about these guys, the Shadows over Camelot. And yeah, there's the knights with the sword, There's Excalibur. Maybe I'm kind of forgetting. Maybe I should be looking what his question was. Stegodeaths. I'm not really sure what that question was about with the swords and the armor, but if you could clarify, I could clarify right back. I went too far. This thing is like coated in brown paint. Got too busy talking about hockey. It looks like we'll be okay. We're going to save the brush. All right, next question. Scouts JC, I have little ones. Do you let your little ones cough help with your hobby? I've got a few minis I had to sacrifice. Cough. Enjoyed the help from the little ones. Yeah, I had models that I sacrificed to the kids. One of the best things I found for that was the starter set models. So now what you have there is the GW starter sets for the editions where I get, man, how many models would it be? Like, especially with the Goblin one, you get a ton of models for $100. And I mean, first of all, I'd have extras anyway, right? I go with wood wheels. These things are all going to be wood. I'm starting to see a flaw in my design if I go with this painting. Let's be like just brown. No, sorry about the nose, guys. No, I'm not. We got like an hour left. I might as well blow my nose. Mute the mic. And we're back. Yeah. So my flaw here is I was going to go with wooden wheels, and if I do that, it's going to be all brown, and then brown wheels as well, and that's going to look kind of boring. So as much as I said that like stone wheels would look stupid and metal wheels would be a little bit much, I may have to do that just to make them look not like a block of brown. So we'll see. I'm going to go through, and for now, I'm going to paint them brown. And then I'm going to see what it looks like at the very end. Because it's easy enough to do some metal wheels. Okay, back to the questions. Kids. So, lots of extra models. I mean, of course, when you get those starter sets, they come with like extra musicians and extra banners and a lot of extra command stuff that you really don't need. So I had like a pile of them anyway. So the kids got to paint those. I also had some Hero Quest models that they could paint. Some other cheap models I gotten and had no plans for. You know, sometimes you get a deal and let's say you just wanted like 3 of the models. You know, such a great deal. It came with these other things. It's like, well, I might as well get them too. So, you know, I had some models like that. And it's like, sure, kids, paint these up. It's always kind of fun when you try and push them to be a little bit better of a painter. You know, they go and first of all, they grab their model and just paint everywhere. And then you're like, so, would you like to put some skin on that person? Would you like to do some metal onto the sword? You know, trying to lead them through. They're getting better, but yeah, you know, what can I say? They're they're 5 and 7, so their painting skills are, you know, my painting skills aren't anything to brag about. I mean, let's be clear about that there, but we got to work on a little bit more. Many things that they're painting. That's turning into another big deal around here too. We got a local guy who is going to be doing a big tournament, and he asked the question of whether he should be doing 50 or 35-point games, and that opened up a can of worms of, you know, competitive versus whatever, you know, just for fun. He always wants things to be painted, and, you know, should you just then keep it at 35 for fun, or should we be going 50 to make things legit? And ooh, that turns into a huge yelling fest really quick. We're really, really passionate about their willingness or unwillingness to paint. All right, next one here. Irish Skills saying, I hate Butcher 3. Do you hate him as well? Please say yes. Yes, I hate Butcher 3. I think anyone who does not play Kador hates Butcher 3. He's one of those models that just catches you off guard, and boom, you're dead. And so the first time you play against that guy, it just leaves that really, really sour taste in your mouth. And then the second time you play him, you think you know how to stop him, and bam, you're dead. And I mean, that's one of the things with Butcher 3. It's not like one of these like slow grinder games where you can like slowly analyze your play. It's like, nope, you got too close and the dude killed you. Sorry. For those who don't understand how the Butcher 3 thing works, basically, he has a couple of things that can be added on at the beginning. If you kill one of his dogs, because he comes with 2 R-Guy, he gets the Vengeance up. He also could have Madeline Carbeau to get another 3-inch move up. He can Energizer himself up. He can then charge further up, and then he can then do a spell that draws everything within 5 inches towards him, and then he just flashing blades and kills everything there. He can put grievous wounds on it, basically, so that, you know, no transferring or anything like that. So if you play hordes, good luck, you know, you're toast. Even if you're a war machine and you're camping a lot, he's so strong with a weapon master. He just cuts through you. And the combination of those movement shenanigans really makes it hard to hide from him, because if you put layers in front, he basically charges up, pulls everything in, kills it, and then he can always like Energizer to you and then pull you in again. I mean, his feet gives him his focus back again, so he can do a lot of things. And I mean, even he doesn't have to go for straight lines. I mean, he could always Vengeance move here, charge here, Energizer here, then draw in. Like, he can get some crazy angles. And so until you understand all of those things, it's really hard to deal with him. Some other things here. Irish skills also adding, I can't spell coilers without oilers. Stegga saying, you were wondering about the catapult and do stone or metal. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, you could do metal in there because they had metal, but were they really making metal wheels? I really don't think so. It's probably wooden. They probably had metal braces and stuff, so that makes sense for those parts. But, yeah, I mean, the problem is going to be making these things look different. I'm also at the spot here with my painting where I've made everything brown, and now it's hard to do more details because it's all just that base paint drawing. But I didn't want to do that before the show because then there's almost nothing to do. So, well, we have just more time for questions while I wait for this to dry. But Butcher 3, he's a jerk. What did I do to solve him? Striker 2. You know, Butcher 3 is a real tough nut to crack, but hey, when you're POW 25 on average, you're going to go and crack through that armor really easy. Striker 2 also has a really long threat range, can also get a lot of different angles, so you're forcing Butcher 3 to be more defensive, and then that lets your army deal with his army, and eventually you're just trying to line that thing up, so it's almost like the 2 guys with bazookas trying to face off type thing. Otherwise, if you have a really shooty list, you could try and make sure to try and shoot him down. I've tried for the shooty assassination with Kane, but then a lot of times they take shield guards. Other times I've just tried to win off on scenario, because a lot of times they figure that they're just going to slaughter you, and then all of a sudden you just try and, you know, pop Haley's feet and quickly score and catch them off guard because they don't really think scenario, they're thinking assassination. Or if nothing else, you want to pick a list that has multiple heavies in it, preferably colossal so they can't be pulled in, so that, sure, come in, Butcher, go and kill something crazy, my other heavy's going to come across and get you. And that can be a big thing. We have to work off that trade off with them, whereas the peace trade is what they call it, where they're going to have their pieces where the Spriggan or something else, which are going to try and take out your heavies. Because once the Butcher 3 player takes out your heavies, you have nothing to kill Butcher 3, and he just kills everything for free. So, really big deal. Again, with the dogs, if you kill them, they get vengeance, so you don't want to kill them. But if you can, then he loses Pathfinder, and that can really limit his movements. So if you do go for the dogs, either make sure to knock him down so that he can't vengeance, Or sometimes the Butcher 3 player has models in front of him, so then you don't care about vengeance because he can't get closer to you. So look for those opportunities if you can. Just, if you see the opportunity, just kill both the dogs right away. Get it out there. Make it so he has to deal with all the Pathfinder stuff, and that will really, really help. Yeah, Butcher 3 is a jerk, but Sorsha and her whole Ocean's 13 is also not a fun thing either. So that Kador, Kador doesn't get a lot of respect, but it really should. They have some really solid casters, some really solid plays, and a lot of times it's like, oh no, it's all about the circle, it's all about the Signar, it's all about the whatever. And it seems like Kador is just always forgotten, and it shouldn't be. All right, more questions. Scouts JC saying, was there any game, board, TCG, etc. army that you thought was going to be fun, but turns out was so bad you don't want to touch it? Any actual game? I do a lot of research for games, so when I get excited for them, it's usually because I researched them and I found out how good they're supposed to be. It's not usually where I just say, like, that game looks fun and grab it. Actually, you know what? The game that probably fits best here is Twilight Imperium. I heard about how fun this game was and how complex it was, and then when I learned that it took like freaking 24 hours to play like a game of Twilight Imperium, screw that. And I felt like a jerk because my brother-in-law, I got it for him for his birthday, and then it's like, yeah, sorry, your game actually kind of sucks, and I don't want to play it with you. So, yeah, that would probably be the best example of that there. Another collectible card game that I played that I thought was going to be awesome but then sucked was called Rage. It was based off all about these werewolves. They had these two-sided cards, so that on one side was the human form, and then through cards or with the moon rising, you could turn them into werewolves, and it seemed really cool. But then with playing my brothers, we quickly found all the broken loopholes. And, I mean, once you had one person that was a werewolf and the rest weren't, they just kill everything. And, yeah, it was kind of silly. So those are probably the two best examples I have of a game that was like, yeah, this is awesome, and then totally sucked. Flame Knight Dragon. Do you have any advice for painting minis without primer? Buy primer. I say that because two reasons. One, the primer makes the paint stick onto the model better. So if, like these little catapults, I even primed them, right? Because if I don't, the paint chips off a lot more. It doesn't really adhere to it. And as well, if you ever miss spots, you'll see, because it's like that bright plastic and not a black, right? If you spray paint it black and it turns out I missed some little crevice, you're not going to see it because it's black. It's like a shadow. So how do you paint without primer? Paint with primer. If you have to, primer isn't banned in your part of the world, or you just can't buy it, or you're ethically against it, what you want to do instead is basically do your own primer through a major base coat. So like with these catapults here, first I went over and I did the black primer, and then I did the brown over it. And basically you'd be doing that brown from the beginning, but you have to do it a little bit thicker, because if you go with a thin brown, all of a sudden parts will be scraped off and peel away. So you have to do like a heavy brown or whatever color you're doing as that original color to really have something to work off of. But then if you go for thick paint, then you're covering up details. It just gets some primer. It really is cheap. You don't have to use a GW stuff. You can just use like regular primer for, regular painting, for like painting fences or whatever. That's better than nothing. So I would definitely go for that. Hell, they have some primers out there that save you tons of time, right? Because you'll get a primer that's the same color as what you want to start with. So instead of doing black primer and then painting brown, why not just get some brown primer and then done? That could be a really easy thing to do there. So I don't know the reasoning for not using primer. Maybe you're allergic to it. I know some people with asthma can be bothered by the fumes, but man, get some primer. All right, so we're about halfway through our time. I have all the brown done, so now I can start on the rest of the stuff. But I'm done the questions. So again, if you guys have questions, just post them up there. I'll get to them. One thing I want to talk about is about a little project I was working on now that kind of backfired on me. So Frontline Gaming mats, freaking awesome. Love the mats. You've seen them in a lot of my battle reports. Whenever anybody asks them about them, I just say, you know what? They're awesome. Get them. Well, I'm going to be running the Alberta Masters, and for that, I needed more mats. And so I decided, you know what? I want all my mats to be Frontline Gaming. And in fact, I'm biting the bullet, and whereas I had money that was going to be planned to go to a tournament like Lock and Load or something like that, I'm going to actually instead use that to get all the mats I need for this tournament. Well, if you're going to be getting these Frontline Gamer mats, they're not cheap, so you want to do like a big buy. Last year we did that, and I was kicking myself because I only got 4 at the time, but we got like 40% off. It was awesome, and I wanted to do that again. So I went and I started talking to the community saying, hey guys, is there enough interest out there so that I could get up to 50 mats and pretty much get a good discount there? And there was like, you know, it was going to be a stretch, but it seemed like 50 mats, that was going to be a doable thing. Talked to the guys at Frontline Gaming and got arranged, and I'm going to get that awesome discount of like 40% off, which is awesome. But then when I came back and I started taking people's orders, everybody wanted a Frontline Gaming mat because, like I said, they're freaking awesome. And the problem is that we got up to 153 mats. So in a way, I mean, that's great, right? Pretty much all the gaming locally will be on these awesome mats, and all the tournaments will have all these awesome mats. And, you know, for that standpoint, it's fantastic. However, somebody, namely me, has to put this on their visa until it first comes in. And where I was planning on putting a few $1,000s onto my visa, now it's going to be $10,000 or more on my visa. And it's like, oh, more. You know, I'm not really worried about being stuck for it because, again, Frontline Gaming mats are awesome. And so even if somebody says, I'm not going to buy my mat anymore, I don't care. I can sell that mat for more than what I'm going to be paying for it. However, it's just during that time, you know, it's kind of maxing out the credit there. So, you know, I was going to focus on the good, right? I'm gathering up that good karma. I'm doing a lot of good things for the community. But yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. Pepijin Bowan, there's somebody. Are you the guy that used to do the Arena of Death that I ran on what was it called? The War Room. Jeez, Warseer. There we go. Wow, man, I forgot the name of the forum. That's bad. There's somebody with a name like that that was part of my Arena of Death. So let me know if that was you. Kador Signar, what about the Convergence? Thinking about starting War Machine with them. Don't start War Machine with Convergence. Okay, if you're looking to start an army and your problem with hobbies is that you don't like to paint, Convergence could be for you. You basically just go and spray the whole thing silver, do some highlights, your models look awesome. However, the gameplay is really hard. Whereas normally I say, if you're a learning player, War Machine is a lot easier to learn than Hordes because the focus mechanic is just that you get your focus back every turn. The Fury mechanic, you got to balance it with your beasts and all the rest of it. But then you come to Convergence. And Convergence, you have your focus, but it's all about like trying to set up these machines where, okay, when I put this over here, he's going to go use a focus. It transfer it to this jack. He'll use that focus. It'll transfer to this jack. And you have to do a lot of planning. And that can be really frustrating for a new player. So if you are the type of person who loves puzzles but hates painting, sure, Convergence is great for you. If you're a person who hates puzzles and loves painting, maybe you want to look for something else. Otherwise, he said about Kador and Signar, either of those armies could be a great starting army. Yeah, One you shoot things, the other one you put axe to the face. Both are the War Machine, so the easier mechanic. And yeah, both of their starter boxes are fine boxes as well. So yeah, go for that. Wacko Blaze. Why do War Machine players seem to paint their armies less than in Fantasy? It's not the standard. It really comes down to just that. In Fantasy, it was originally run by Games Workshop, and Games Workshop really pushed that, hey, if you want to play in our tournaments, you have to be painted. So right there started up this tradition where you had to paint your models. And other than their art boys, where they just really wanted you to buy stuff, that was just the mechanic and how it worked. However, in War Machine, it wasn't like that at all. In War Machine, the default is that you don't need it painted. Now, there are a couple of formats where that's not the case, and that painting is the default. But for the vast majority, where you're looking at Steamroller and stuff like that, the default thing is that you don't need to worry about being painted. And it's kind of funny because in Games Workshop, you have more models, and it's a lot tougher and all these things. But yeah, it's just a different mentality. Part of it as well is, I mean, you can look at it this way too, where Games Workshop was more selling it where you're playing Games Workshop for the story, right? You got these Space Marines, they're fighting the Chaos Space Marines, blah, 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 blah. Whereas War Machine was really coming at it for, like, this is a game and who's going to make the best tactical decisions. So it's also from that point as well where you're coming at it from. Again, I mean, which one's right and which one's wrong? It's really neither. It's really about all what you are after as a gamer, but that's really it. I have been doing my best to try and encourage the War Machine players to paint, as you have here with the Paintisode, but it's funny. I mean, some of the people just do not want to paint whatsoever. I mean, if you ever even suggest that this tournament you ought to be painted to come and play, they'll just boycott it. They could have a 50-point army painted right there. They're still going to boycott your tournament. So it's just a different world. And, you know, I kind of do wish that at some point Privateer Press, who is starting to more push wanting painted now, because now they're trying to get more global exposure. They're recording games and showing off their games. And so clearly painted models look better than unpainted models. So that's why in some of these other events where they normally record it and share it, then the default is you have to paint it. And, you know, that can happen at any time where they update their Steamroller each year, and they could say, hey, for this year, Steamroller default is you need to be painted. And I would gladly welcome that. Will they do it? I don't know. You know, they'll make a lot of enemies doing it that way. So, no more questions here. So far, so we'll get back to those mats. The other thing I have to work out how I want to do with these mats is that when it comes to the GW mats, and by the way, GW, screw you for not continuing your awesome mats. $35 for a mat was freaking awesome. And then, yeah, I guess you want to force people to do your Realm of Battle board. But for those, they were awesome. I could fold them up, put them in a box, and I could bring a bajillion mats very, 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 very easily. Well, now that that's not the thing I can do, the Frontline Gaming mats come in a tube, and so it's a lot harder to bring multiple tubes, right? For those who don't know what the Frontline Gaming mats are like, they're basically like mouse pads, so they don't really fold over that well. So I'm going to have to find if there's like some box I can put together that can hold multiple mats, or maybe I can roll multiple mats together at the same time. I don't know. I'm going to have to find something like that that'll make it work. Because, I mean, man, 50 of those. I mean, that's the other thing, too, for this big order. Oh, no, dropped the catapult. For the big order I did, I mean, trying to find room for 153 mats just for me to organize and make sure that, okay, you ordered the snow one, you ordered the grass one, blah, 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 have everything all divided up. It's going to take a lot of room and a lot of effort to coordinate all this. So, you know, old Malorian might have bit off more than he could chew, but we'll get through it. And then never again. Then it'll be time to enjoy it rather than, you know, I like running tournaments. You know, it's a funny thing. When me and my brothers were kids and there were video games, I liked a lot more to see my brothers play the video games. You know how a lot of times you have people fighting about who's going to play and who's going to watch. I'm always like, guys, you play, I want to check out, because I just found it interesting to see how people would play. And especially in games where I could make up levels and stuff, I love designing levels and then seeing how they actually played out. So with that, I mean, I just love running tournaments, right? I have no problem being the guy on the side that's really organizing things, declaring the matchups. Not that I'm fixing the matchups or anything, but then just seeing how different games actually play out. And if I ever have some extra rules in a tournament, I mean, this doesn't really apply to War Machine, but back in Fantasy, if I had some sort of rule I was using, it'd be interesting to see how it actually play out and how people would try and break the rule. So, you know, stuff like this where I'm investing. A lot of people said, like, what, you're going to spend all this money on getting mats to run your tournaments? You're crazy. You know, go out there, play in tournaments, have fun. Well, I'm still having fun. You know, it's not like I'm not playing either. I just play a lot more local games. So, what's your question, guys? But the next Signar caster I'm looking at playing, I think, and again, I'm always limited because I'm having to deal with guys like Bradigus, is that now I'm getting really used to Seeds. I'm getting really used to Haley. Some of the ones I'm going to try out more is Sturgis, which you've kind of seen those lists there, and he's been a blast to play so far, and also P. Haley. You know, E. Haley gets all the front pages and all the hype because of what she does, but man, P. Haley is pretty awesome as well. And I played a couple of games with her before. They're pretty much the straight gun lines, but I think it's time to bring it back. You know, most people just won't really know what she even does, I think, for some of the people in my meta. You know, of course, all the experienced players will know, but there's a good number of new players that they'll think that whole thing of like, oh, yeah, everything in my control area can't run or charge. They're like, oh, yeah, that's your feat? No, that's a spell I'm going to be casting every single turn. You're going to be -4 defense, and you're not going to be able to run, and I'm going to do this to you every single turn. So you just keep on crawling towards me while pew, pew, pew. I'm just going to keep on shooting you down. And I mean, you do that with, like, you know, my list before had 2 units of long gunners, 2 units of gun mages, probably Black 13th as well, and you are just, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's just, you know, if they're not prepared, you just destroy them. But then again, that Bradigus causing me issues. You know, he doesn't care if he can't run. He's just porting anyway. And that's always the annoying things, where you have these ideas that you'd love to do, but just one caster that's popular in your meta means you can't really do it. There was a rumor a while ago that they were going to change the way that you do the pairings so that you don't pick what caster you're using, you pick which caster your opponent can't use. So like in a 2-pair, if I'm facing Kruger 2 and Bradigus, I say no Bradigus for you, and that basically means you're facing Kruger. And I think that'd actually be a lot nicer, because all of a sudden then those single casters, I mean, the better they are, the least they're less you're going to see them, so I'll bring some balance there too. And if you have that one caster you really want to use, but he gets screwed over by this one thing, well, then you can avoid it. But again, that'd be a pretty major change. Doubt Privateer Press would actually go that way, but it'd be fun just to try, right? Just like in a fun little round-robin event or something. Meanwhile, this Wednesday, I'm going to get to see how this blind death clock works out. The people coming for War Machine Wednesday are going to do that. And yeah, I think it's going to go over great. You know, both of them are really hyped up about it and think it'll be a lot of fun. Plus, I think it's going to be fun just to play anyway. And again, I mean, it's one of these things where I think it would be really good for the game if it went to blind death clock, because then you wouldn't have all these things. Where I mean, I already did the video about it, but just to kind of really sum it up really quickly, I hate it when I watch games and the starting few turns are clean and nice, and then the last few turns are just slapping the clock and randomly, quickly trying to sloppily throw models around. And so at first I applauded this new change where every turn has to be 15 seconds, but then when I actually had it come up, I'm not such a big fan anymore. So I think that's the answer. Blind death clock, make it so you can't see, you know, just when your time's up, the time's up and it beeps, and there you go. Should have been playing faster. I mean, it's not like it's robbing you of any time. It's in your best interest to be playing as fast as you can all the time anyway. But then again, the problem there is that, I mean, a lot of clocks, either there's no function where you can hide it, so how are you going to hide the time? And as well, there's not always the function where it beeps. So all of a sudden, a lot of people's death clocks that they already own would be obsolete. I mean, at least have as a variant. I think that'd be a cool variant just to have the option for. Just to try it out at the least. These little catapults are coming along, adding on the silver. See, and isn't that a lot better than if this thing was just plain gray? You know, it actually looks like a little catapult now. I still have to finish off. At first, I tried doing the silver on most of the body and on the wheels too, because like I said, I'm going to go for the silver wheels, but then I had nowhere to hold on to the models. So I'm doing some of the silver highlights, and then I have to come back and do the wheels after. And then really all I have to do then is the little rock that's in the little catapult thing there. And that thing too, I'm hoping actually shows up. I mean, the rock would probably have to be gray, but gray on silver doesn't always show up the best. So I might have to try and make it some sort of a darker rock. I don't know. More of like a blackish gray, so that really stands out. Be really cool if maybe I could like actually paint it to look like fire. So, you know, like it's shooting little fireballs and like flaming tar covered, you know, boulders into the city. But then I probably should have sculpted fire onto it, and I'm not going to go that far. And I think without sculpting the little flames on there, it's just going to look like a red rock. Which is probably just showing off my complete lack of skills. But the truth is the truth. I had an interesting question come up on our local forum today that some people are feeling intimidated to come down and play. I mean, we had a local guy where he had started playing a long time ago, but let's face it, people are busy, and he hasn't been able to come down in a really long time. And so now he's down there playing with people that have been playing less time than him and yet do way better. So the question is, you know, what do I do about this, and blah, blah, blah. And unanimously, everyone was saying, like, just come down. You know, everybody here would just want to support you. Just let them know that, you know, you're still trying to learn, you're still uncertain with some rules. And sure, you're going to have the odd jackass that's like, oh, yeah, easy win. But most of the time, most of us guys there, especially if you ask to play with the press ganger, are going to teach you the game. And, I mean, that's one of the things. You're not going to learn the game if you're just not playing or, you know, just trying to do the one game a month. You got to get out there, and you have to get to the stores, and you have to learn. And one of the points that I put on there is that one of the things that really holds people back is their need to upkeep their pride. You know, They never want to be seen as weak or as not knowing something, and they would rather not go to the store and not be seen making a mistake. You know, they just rather do that. And in the end, they're the ones missing out. So you're better off just putting that pride away, going there and saying, guess what? I do not know this game as well as you. Teach me. And then bam, you learn. And then next time you come in, you know more and you know more, and all of a sudden you're the expert. You know, I hate that where you have guys that will just refuse. Let's say at work, you know, you have that guy where he just does not know his ass from his face and just does not know what he's doing. And me, I will, if I don't know something, I'll just say straight up, I don't know it. How do I do this? And I mean, sure, at the time, people might be like, oh, really? You don't know this? But then, bam, all of a sudden, I do. And then when it matters, I don't screw it up. It's also a case where I'm not going to be caught, where at some point, I'm going to screw up because I told people I knew how to do something, but I actually didn't know how to do it. So there's a little career advice from Malorian, I suppose. Flame Kingdom Dragon, thank you. I mainly asked due to not being allowed to use my spray primer inside and it being cold outside to use it. I'm assuming then if you can't use your primer inside, that maybe you're part of like a university or a dorm or something like that. But even then, I mean, find some parking lot, something that you can go to and spray. A lot of local, or well, the game stores will have a spot there where you can prime. They'll have a box or something like that, where that's their spray box, and you just spray it in there. You know, if you really are just desperate, you can just do it in the bathroom. You know, turn on the fan, spray your models in the bathroom, and no one will be the wiser. Because like I said, not priming is not the answer. I know one time down here, I got in trouble for priming because I primed an entire army. I was like, yeah, that's all done. Things are pretty bad. Like, things are pretty fumigated in here. I better get out. Meanwhile, this is the crawl space, so it draws in all that air and puts it into the rest of the house. Yeah, the missus was not too happy that I basically filled the house with poisonous gas that our children were in. Yeah, that was not a good thing. So ever since then, even if I have a lot of models I need to prime at once, I'll just do them a little bit at a time. Another thing that I've found too is I always hear that, you know, cold weather, can't prime. I have not actually found that. You know, a lot of times I think it's because I do it quickly. I have everything set up on a board, especially up in Fort Mac, right, where I was painting up there during my days off, not days off, like evenings off, and I would just have everything set up on a board. I would just take a step outside, turn, 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 got my 4 sides, I'm back in. And I never had any issues. So, I mean, that could be the answer as well, right? You don't need to be sneaky. You don't need to spray them in the shower. Just have it set up so that you can quickly spray them, and that cold should not be that big of a factor. Come along. This silver is taking longer than I thought. We'll still be, no, we're not going to be done in time. We're almost done our time. Oh, no. I should have done the brown before. Either way, I'm getting pretty damn close. This is the 9th of the 12 catapults that I'm getting the silver on. And, I mean, once you put the silver on, the second color, it's looking pretty much there. It's that 80-20 rule. Ryan Winter, only problem I can see with the blind death clock is if the clock gets paused for any reason, no one will be able to make sure it gets resumed. Then how do you fix that? Just my opinion. Well, I think that one's actually pretty easy because the only person who is allowed to pause a death clock is the judge. You know, that's actually part of the package, that you're not supposed to pause your death clock unless you're the judge. You know, even if you're calling the judge, you don't pause your death clock. it is the judge that comes over and then pauses it. And so with our death clocks, I wish I had one close here. Do I? I do. So what I'll do is, instead of having it this way, play it like this. I can take it out of my mouth. So that the judge, who will be on the outside of the table, can see the time and make sure it's running. Meanwhile, the players who are on this side don't see what the time is until beep, 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 tells you run out. Now, again, that's going to highly depend on your model and all that type of things. But, man, I mean, especially using this guy here, I think this is going to work out perfectly. And like I said in my video, I bet you it's going to be kind of unnerving the first time you do it. But you know what? It's unnerving the first time you do Death Clock anyway. It's like, oh my God, I'm being timed. And then you realize that, honestly, if you can handle time turns, Death Clock is not really an issue at all. So anyway, Wacko Blaze saying, War Machine is awesome. I've had a hard time putting any effort into my Skaven lately. All Menoth, lol. Menoth is awesome. I mean, right there, if you're a painter, Skaven is the thing that will suck away your soul, because you will paint 100 models and it's 200 points. And it's just like, holy crap, I could have painted everything I'd ever need for Menoth, and it's just like one unit of slaves. And so I can definitely see that. Plus, you have all the end time stuff going on. Although I think Skaven are actually getting the last book here, so Skaven players should be pretty happy right now. But you know, maybe not. You have all these monsters and things now, so your dreaded 13th isn't doing what it used to, and so forth. So maybe being a Skaven isn't all as I'm thinking it's supposed to be. Plus, I guess you don't have the normal access to all the lores, which got better with the whole Kane magic and stuff like that. See, I know some fantasy still. But, yeah, go Menoth. Menoth is a great army that is so annoying. I almost got into Menoth. Playing with Epic Magnus, his tier, you get to use Long Gunners and also the Idrians. So I was like, well, I have 2 units of Idrians for my tier 4 Epic Magnus anyway. You know, maybe I should just play Menoth. And it was really close, especially when one of my friends got out of Menoth, and I picked them up just because they were an awesome deal, and I was planning just to resell them as more making money as opposed to playing Menoth. It was super tough to actually make that move, because, you know, Menoth, with all their tricks of like, oh, you can't shoot my warjacks, or, you know, all my errants, they have Defender's Ward and they're tough, and then Harvey is just going to bring them back to life anyway. You know, it's just, oh, Menoth and their tricks. They don't seem to have like the extreme tricks that some of the other factions have, right? Like, we're not talking Gaspy 2, where you're pulling up a big unit up from the dead and they're charging and killing things. And, you know, we're not talking like Epic Kane, I'm going and I'm killing everything. But they still, you know, they have like these more stable, right? They're all about the steady advance, the grind, and being stable, as opposed to like the bam, magic, you're dead. I guess Krios would be the point that doesn't match that. Krios is all about the awesome pop drop, haha, you're dead. But most of the Menoth is really about the slow grind and just playing the careful game. Now, a tournament coming up here where I'll be going to Calgary to play, and I'm hoping to play against a guy named Bryn. And if you know the Canadian meta, you might have also heard him on Chain Attack and stuff. You know, Bryn's a guy that's made it on to Team Canada. I only played him once back when I was playing Legion, and he beat me then. And I'm hoping now I can get another shot at it, right? He's one of these higher caliber players that you want to test yourself against. And he's a really good Menoth player. My brother has had a lot more opportunities to play against him than I have. And yeah, hopefully I do well and I can see him in the finals or something. But then again, there'll be some other players I got to deal with too. That's always one of the things you have to watch for in War Machine. you get so focused on how do you beat certain matchups you plan to see, like maybe in the finals, and then you get surprised by something along the way. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to deal with that Menoth. You know, I'm all ready to deal with Harbinger. I'm all ready to deal with High Reclaimer, with Krios, you know, Sevi. You have all those things put in your mind, and then you're like, Barnabas? And then all of a sudden you can't shoot anything, and he pops feet, and you're knocked down, and your stuff is dead. And it's like, damn. I spent so much time focusing on this one matchup that, you know, I wasn't really in the moment, right? Even in the game, you're just planning like, oh, let's get this over with so I can get back to figuring out how I'm going to win this other matchup. And maybe, too, maybe your list just isn't prepared. You're so focused on this one counter that you weren't ready for the other 90% of the field. I know another guy that's going to be coming with us, Frazier. He'll be in our car coming down from Edmonton. And he's also a really great player, but you never know what that guy's going to play. You know, he was a great Menoth player for a while. Well, he still is. But lately he's been doing Crix. He's jumped over to some other factions. And he's one of those guys where it is really hard to plan for them because you just don't know what the hell they're going to bring. You know, they're such a solid player that they can really pick up whatever faction, or maybe let's say they have like 3 factions or 4 factions that they're rather good with. And then, I mean, how do you plan to deal with this person? You don't know what they're going to bring. Like I said, bam, Barnabas, what the hell? And you're just kind of reeling. Flame Knight Dragon saying, what do you hope to see in Reckoning for Signar? As a Menoth player, I hope to see a Paladin Warcaster. That'd be interesting. I don't know if it'd be broken. I'm pretty sure it actually would be broken to have a Warcaster that just could do that, like forfeit his movement or action and say, like, I'm immune to non-magical attacks or things like that. But it would be cool to have a caster based around a Paladin. You know, Paladins are just cool. What would I want to see for Signar? You know, for me, it's almost like I don't want to see a specific thing. Like I don't have a specific thing in mind that I really want to have there. It's more so I just want to have more options. So, I mean, any Warcaster, no matter what they do, I don't really care if it's Haley 3 or Kane 3 or somebody else new, as long as they offer a new way of playing, right? Like maybe they have a new caster that makes it so that your light artillery gets awesome. And then all of a sudden, if you play them with the light artillery objective, you're just going to be kicking butt. And it just really can change the way you play the faction. I enjoy that a lot more. You know, and that's my thing. I mean, why get other factions when you can just use your same models and then have a different caster that turns different portions of it on? But that's probably what I'd be more after. I mean, being that I love Kane, I'd love to see a Kane 3 where I know his guns are supposed to be stolen by Magnus. So maybe he comes back, instead of having 2 pistols, he has 2 shotguns or something. You know, like just something epic and awesome like that would be great to see. But really, I'd be happy with whatever. I mean, if anything, I'd actually want to see things more balanced. And actually, one of the things that's interesting with the caster thing as well is that now they have this whole ADR, the active roster thing going on. Whoever comes in as these new casters are automatically on the ADR list. So it really opens up for what you can use in these master tournaments. And I wouldn't want to have something, you know, really pushing me extremely good. But like I said, something with more options. I mean, maybe some non-Epic Haley TK control caster, right? So that I don't have to play E. Haley with her crazy, maybe like an assassination TK caster, right? Where he how does it work? I'm trying to think of what would be if we have an existing one that actually that could work with. I mean, let's imagine if we're talking Legion, because that's coming to my mind faster. Where we're talking about like Rias 2, and like Rias has been trained by Saren, and all of a sudden you have this assassin that also has TK, so she can like move models backwards and move models out of the way so that she can pull off her assassinations, right? Like, that's really cool. And it's not just the regular Haley 2 I control from the back, or Kruger 2, you know, I just control and hide and try and win by scenario. Like, an assassination control caster would be really cool. And I'm actually hoping that will be Rias. You don't really have, I mean, like, all of our assassination casters in Signar all have guns, so it doesn't really work there. I mean, TK kind of works, but I mean, it's not as awesome as like TKing something and then charging it because you open up these gaps and all of a sudden your ninja can charge through the lines, right? Like if Striker 2 had TK, right? Like, that'd be really interesting. You think you're safe? No, you're not. Because all of a sudden you're on the other side of the wall. That monster that was blocking you has now moved out of the way. And now it's charge time, baby. It's just, it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, playing E. Haley now, one of the things I'm coming up with is that since she has so many options for a player that can really plan out their turn, it's a huge benefit for the stronger players. I mean, that's why Bradigus is so awesome. He's all about just having options. Having those 3 stones means that if you're a player that can really plan out how you're going to be porting around and killing, you're just going to do better, right? Because they're just basically enabling you. As far as jacks go, I don't think we need any jacks. There's not really any units I can think of that we're really missing. Like, maybe a Stormcaller unit would be cool. But then you might just be playing Nemo 2, or one of the tiers that lets you take multiple Stormcallers. Calling down Lightning's just fun. Got Defense 17? I don't care. I'm calling down Lightning. It's just going to hit you anyway. Pass that skill test, bam, you're dead. Actually, by looking at the Lightning stuff, now that my Dynamo is painted, I've been looking at the Storm Strider some more. And that's our battle engine, which it's up there in pieces because the damn thing's so top-heavy that it breaks all the time. But now I'm starting to look at it again, going, you know what? There's a lot of cool things you can do with it. It's actually pretty awesome for 9 points. If I do a Haley's tier with it, where it starts off with 3 focus or power tokens or whatever, you know, it's pretty solid. You know, it gets 2 POW 14 shots for 9 points, plus the Electro Leaps. I mean, you can't boost until you get those tokens. But like I said, if you run it with E. Haley's tier, you start off with those tokens anyway. So, or if you run it with Nemo, then all of a sudden you pop your feet and they're basically boosted anyway. So, I might have to do it. But first, I'm painting shadows. All the catapults today. Next time, probably I'll get all like the support things where I need the Grail and the Lancelot's armor and what's the other one? Oh, Excalibur. And then I gotta start painting all the knights. I got all the Celts to paint. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's gonna be really worth at the end. I see that a lot with that. I think it's called Super Dungeon Explorer. Lots of people painting up the models for those. And there can be a lot, as I understand, I've never played the game, but as I understand, there's a lot of different monsters you could be using in that game, so there's a lot of work to be done. So either way, talking about my work, we are now past my usual hour by about 15 minutes. I see that the views are starting to fade away as probably their time is getting pretty damn late. Plus, as I've ran out of questions, maybe I'm just rambling on. But you know what? I'm going to finish these catapults. I know that if I turn off this Paintisode, I'll go straight upstairs, grab some chips, and watch TV. And you know what? That's what this Paintisode is about. Supporting each other, getting the painting done. Hopefully you guys are painting as well while you're doing this. Sometimes I almost wish that there was like a little window that I could peek at you guys and find out. Are you really painting while you listen to this? Are you just like listening to it on the bus? listening at breakfast, listening at work. You know, what are you guys using this for? Is this just something you put in the background so that your kid falls asleep? You know, maybe. Had kind of a crazy thing happen downtown today. I was going to the mall trying to get some food, and then on the way back, you know, there's panhandlers around, the beggars and all that stuff, and they're always there asking for money and stuff like that. But this one was really in your face aggressive. As soon as I left the mall, he was right there. He's like, "Hey, do you have something for me?" And meanwhile, he was holding up a newspaper, and then it also had blood on it. Now, I didn't really know if I should be focusing on him, focusing on the newspaper. Like, was there some, like, article I was supposed to be looking at, or focusing on the blood? Either way, I just got freaked out and got out of there. I was trying to figure out what's his tactic. You know, is he actually just trying to stress people out so much that they just, like, quickly throw money at him just to get him away? One of the things that somebody was saying after is that you actually get fined by giving money to the homeless. You know, is this their way of trying to control the situation? You can't really fine the homeless because they have no money, but what they do is they fine the people that give money to the homeless. And so what they do then is, instead of just saying, "Can I have some money?" Is they'll try and sell you those 3 newspapers. You know, things that you see there, usually they're a local thing that you just get for free. So that way they're actually selling you something. So legally you aren't just giving them money, you're actually buying something from them. So maybe that's what he was doing, but he's got to realize that there's blood across the top of this thing, right? Like, how are you not noticing this? Another thing that my wife had happen to her just the night before is that she went to get some dog food, and when she was heading into the store, she noticed that in one of the cars, and it's cold out here now, it's, you know, you're looking at like getting close to -20 again, Celsius, and there is a baby and a dog inside this car, and it's like, that's not what's supposed to be happening. You know, they better just be running in and out super quick because this is kind of wrong. And so what she does, she goes in, has to find the dog food and treats and stuff. And it's been 10 or so minutes now, and she can see out the window that the baby's still there. So she tells the guy at the front, "Can you go and make an announcement? Because whoever owns that should get out there and deal with this. Because this is just, it's getting criminal. In fact, it's criminal from the beginning." And so eventually she goes out there, and this man goes out to confront her. And she's all angry because, "Hey, is this your car?" And she says, "Oh, no. And so the guy goes and he takes pictures of the license plate and of the baby and the dog inside. And the wife is thinking, "Okay, this is good. I don't need to worry about this because he's going to report it and it's all going to be covered." And then he goes away. He gets to his car, or truck rather, and instead of driving away, he goes to the back of the parking lot and waits. And my wife is kind of like, "Wait a second, what's going on here?" So she gets to her car and waits and watches, and another 10 minutes or whatever later, so this baby and dog have been in there for quite a while now. The guy comes out, and it looks like he's like, "Oh, you know, how's it going, baby, blah, blah, blah." And this guy in the truck just roars over to him, blocks him in front, you know, drives in front of his vehicle so he can't get out, and he's yelling at him and putting up his phone. So probably he's video recording or showing the fact that he has pictures. And, you know, it's not really cool that he's yelling at the guy, but at the same time, he probably deserves it. But then this is where things escalate. The guy in the car with the baby goes to grab the guy in the truck and pull him out. And, you know, so the wife is like freaking out, like, "Whoa, what the hell is going on here?" And then the guy in the truck goes to drive away and drives over his foot. So, yeah, things, like I said, are escalating. They're still yelling at each other. The guy with the baby in the car gets back into his car, and they do like a high-speed chase away. And the wife is just like, "What the hell? What's going on?" So, yeah, some craziness going on in Canada right now. You think that's all happiness and beavers and maple syrup, but something must be in the water right now. Wacko Blaze still staying strong, and he's I'm always painting during your Paintisode. Menoth for Penta right now. So good to see the Menoth War Machine being painted. Like I said, we're now at 20 minutes past what I normally do. I have 3 more catapults to do, the last of the silver on the wheels. Then I have to paint the rocks. So we're going to be a little bit late today, but that's okay. You know, I know some people complain that my Paintisodes aren't actually long enough, because it turns out that whereas I can normally get a model or 2 painted in an hour, a lot of people take more care than me, and so they can't. So they're like, yeah, could you either make your Paintisodes longer, or could you actually make them more frequent? And so there you go. This is my gift to you. This is one of my longer Paintisodes. I think this has actually happened recently too. That's the one where I think it was just last time we lost connectivity around this point in an hour. Man, we might lose it again, so we'll find out. But I had to do a second show. But I was trying to finish off my painting anyway. I was doing Dynamo. And I find it's better to do that, right? Just kill it off, because if you stop and you put it down, who knows? Are you going to come back to it the day after? Are you going to come back to it in a week? You know, all of a sudden, if you get out of that grind and stop painting, that's where it stops for a long time. I'm currently doing this Tale of War Machine Painters locally, and you notice that you have some guys that they start painting and they're doing awesome, right? The goal is 10 points a month. And the first month they did 15. The second month they did like 30. Next month they did 20. And then 0. And then 0. And then 0. And then 0. Because, I mean, in some cases, it's like, I painted 100 and I'm done. You know, they burn out or they paint all they needed. But in a lot of other cases, they just stopped. Because either it was a busy month, or it was Christmas, or whatever the excuse was. And then, like I said, once you stop painting, you're in trouble. That's part of the reason why I'm doing these guys right now. I painted all those models for my little painting challenge, and honestly, I was feeling a little bit of War Machine painting burnout. You know, I wanted to do Dynamo, got that guy done, but now I want to take a break. And I could either do a break and paint nothing, or I could take a break from painting War Machine and paint board games instead. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm still painting, still getting things done. And then after this month is done, I'll be ready to get back to War Machine again. I've actually so far, what has it been? It's been 6 months so far for this Tale of Fantasy Players, and I have painted over 200 points. Warcasters are worth 5 points, but still, it's kind of crazy how much I've painted in just 6 months. I mean, clearly Jax can really speed those things up really quick. Or when I did my second Storm Wall, you know, those Colossals really add to those points quick. But still, it's kind of crazy how fast those things paint. And as well, I have a way more models of paint as well. I have 3 units of Storm Guard, well, 2 Silverline and 1 regular. Tons and tons of Mercs to paint. Still lots of Jacks to paint. My Trenchers, my Commandos. Even some casters I got to finish, right? Like my Nemo 3 isn't done yet. So one of the things I'll have to decide is whether I want to forcibly slow myself down so that if I want to do a second Tale of Fantasy Players, that I still have something left. Although I guess I always have the other factions too. I could finish off my Legion. I could go back to Circle. I have more board games I could paint. I wonder what's like the craziest board game I could decide to paint. You know, like if I started painting up Risk or something like that. You know, what game would be the one where my gaming buddies would come over and go, why the hell did you bother painting this? You know, like they come over to play Axis and Allies, and I've painted all the factories and all the anti-aircraft guns. And they're going, what? You got a problem, Malorian. You got to put the paintbrush down. On that note, the silver is all done on all the catapults. So now I have to do that dark rock. And normally you think my dark brown could really help, but that's what I use for the wood. All of a sudden my limited palette is really going to be hurting me. I'm going to see what it looks like. Like I said, gray on silver normally doesn't show up very well. I may want to actually paint it black first and then put on the gray. Or I could put on the black and then dry brush the gray. That could also come out okay. Pepijin Bowan saying, how do you end up choosing which war games you play? Why War Machine and not one of the many alternatives like Infinity? Really what it came down for War Machine was that was what was being played. When I was up there in Fort Mac, I was still really big into fantasy, but nobody really played fantasy there. Everybody was playing War Machine. And at the time, I was looking at War Machine, I was looking at Flames of War. Infinity wasn't really a thing right then. But, yeah, you know, if everyone was doing War Machine, I might as well do War Machine too. And it just stuck. And over the years, people kind of said, like, oh, well, you know, like, why don't you try out Malifaux? Why don't you try out Infinity? And I've actually been trying to stay away from those things like Dystopian Wars and all the rest, just because I know I need to focus. Right? I know that I just do not have the personal ability to play multiple games and be competitive in them. Oh, this is looking out fine. I just put the gray on here, and it's a light enough gray that it is, I don't know if you can kind of see there how it is going to be like a nice little ball on top. So that's going to work out great. But that's why I went with War Machine. You know, I had actually played a little bit of War Machine before as demos. There was like an open gaming day, and I had done a demo of War Machine, and I thought it was interesting. It was kind of neat. They did not play with scenarios, so at the time I was like, why don't we just shoot everything? Which is maybe why I got to Signar in the end. But yeah, I have not actually played Infinity. I have heard some really great things about it. A lot of my friends are like, come on, man, you got to try this out. It's an awesome game. But that's almost kind of the reason why I'm not playing it, because I know I might get addicted. And that's not good for me. Flame Knight Dragon saying, if I had my minis primed, I would be painting the last 4 models for my Relic Knights Shattered Sword Paladin starter box. Relic Knights is another one where I've been told it is an awesome game. Malorian, come and give this thing a try. You know, I have 2 armies. All you got to do is come over, and I just don't want to. You know, it's one thing to play these board games. Like, I play lots of board games on the side, but these, you know, competitive tabletop war games, I know are those things that really draw me in. Then all of a sudden I want to pick my faction, and I want to go all in and be the best I can be. You know, get the whole Pokemon theme going in the background there. And then all of a sudden I'm learning all the rules, and then I'm confusing their rules with this other game, and it's just best not to. I mean, at some point here, well, I do hit my goal, then I can relax more and try out these other things. But as is right now, I would rather just focus. I got some people helping me out too. On the Primer to Press forum, I had somebody saying, hey, man, why don't you play more mercenaries? And I said, you know what? Maybe I should. Magnus is awesome. And then I had somebody else come on and say, no, don't you. Your focus is what's been making you play so well lately. Don't throw that away. So, all right. Back to Signar it is. So close. Now here's another question. Now that I've painted all these models, do I do the final wash? Do I really care? Especially for these models where they're already so dark. I mean, there are details to be showed where there's the wood grain, but because I'm on a dark brown already, I don't think it'll really show. And as well, where I was kind of worried about the gray and the silver, if I darken that gray, that'll make it even worse. So I think, here, I'll try and get all these catapults on my hand, because, I mean, I've been just painting down here. You have no idea what I've been doing. You know, maybe I've just been here playing Candy Crush, and you had no idea. You thought I was painting, but I'm full of shit. But here we go. I'll put them all in my hand, and there you go. In that about an hour and a half, I painted 12 catapults for Shadows over Camelot. And for those who play Shadows over Camelot, you know that these are the evilest things, because if you see 12 catapults and Shadows over Camelot, that means you lost the game. So there you go. Next time I'll be working on something else, I'm sure, from Shadows. But thanks for hanging on. I know this was a late one today. If you're watching, please post down below about what you were painting, because I love hearing that as well. If you have any thoughts on the whole blind death clock and all those other things, I'm really starting if I should try and push to make it a thing in my meta. So getting people's feedback really helps me try and make that decision. But either way, there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.